Okay, so back to my story. It's 1978. My brother and I are visiting my dad. It's a hot summer day in the Midwest. And this particular weekend, I found my dad's stash of pornography. And for the next 20 years, until my early 30s, I went through a cycle of sin that was so devastating that at the end of it, I knew where a gun was and I wanted to put it in my mouth and pull the trigger. Now, how do you get from point A to point B, right? How do you go from a 7-year-old boy looking at pornography to, a guy who's 24, 25 in his first marriage and getting ready to blow everything because he's having an affair? I had 2 affairs. I had hundreds of emotional affairs. Chapter 7, bankruptcy. How do you go from looking at pornography to filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy? And then after the bankruptcy, being in such a depressed state that I couldn't stay awake for more than a couple hours. I slept 14 and 15 hours a day for like a year and a half, let alone I couldn't keep a stinking job. I had 9 jobs in less than 18 months. That's how bad my depression was. And I couldn't figure it out, what was going on. And all I could think about was, wow, sex, death, or am I really going to get help? So one day I wake up from one of my many naps and I decide, you know what? The pain is too great in my life. I can't keep a job. It's done. I knew where the gun was. All I had to do was load it, put it in my mouth, and pull the trigger, and everything would be fine. And when I said that to myself, I heard this. I heard, that would be great. That would be great, Dustin. You just carry on the family tradition of being cowards because your grandfather stuck a gun in his mouth and your father drank himself to death. That's a great idea. Obviously, I didn't do that. But here's the question. How do you go from being a 7-year-old boy to being a boy who shaved in his early 30s, getting ready to kill himself? How does that happen? Well, it happens like this. We don't walk onto this big diving board of life and decide to do this big, beautiful swan dive into the ocean of sin, right? Satan is way too tricky for that. What he does is he gets you on the beach and he says, come here. You're going to like this. And I did. One page at a time, right? One click of a mouse at a time. One magazine at a time. One flirt at work at a time. One touch of the hand at a time. One phone call at a time. One strip club at a time. And over 20 years, I just walked out into that ocean of sin. And all of a sudden, I've got a gun in my mouth and I'm ready to kill myself? Really? Because I'm drowning in this ocean of sin. Can you guys relate to that?